If you allow me, I'll get into what I'm thinking with this game plan and what they need to do.
Please.
It's up to you. I know you're the one driving the show. You point me in that direction. I go.
You want to spill your bucket right off the top? Yeah, go ahead.
Let's go.
What the hell are the Eagles going to do to win this game on Sunday against the Jaguars? Hour number 2 of Birds 365 here on the JAKIB YouTube channel. Jody McDonald, joined by Barrett Brooks. Johnny Mac running in for media availability for the Eagles on this Football Friday, so I get double B here for my second and final hour. How you doing, big guy?
Good. And this is going to be media availability probably for the rest of the year. Now they're into their schedule, so I probably will be hanging out with you on Fridays from 9 to 10 from this point on, unless they have, another, a Thursday game or a Friday game or whatever. You know what I mean? I guess I got to hang out with you, man. Well, they're creatures of habit, man. Football players were creatures of habit. You got to get us going. Once you get us going in that one direction, it's hard for us to veer off. So, just plug on.
You will get no complaints from me, my friend. Thank you for doing it today and any other future Friday you hop in with me. How many of these future Fridays you and I are going to do where the Eagles are undefeated?
Well, I don't know, man. I mean, looking at this game, we should be undefeated. I mean, should is not even a strong word. Yes, they had some dominating performances. The last 2 performances they had is very, very, very good. If you allow me, I'll get into what I'm thinking with this game plan and what they need to do.
Please.
It's up to you. I know you're the one driving the show. You point me in that direction. I go.
You want to spill your bucket right off the top? Yeah, go ahead.
Let's go.
What the hell are the Eagles going to do to win this game on Sunday against the Jaguars?
Well, at this point, they already have an established culture. That's number one. But Doug is bringing in a new culture to Jacksonville. They are a couple of players and a couple about a half a year away from being a really, really good team. He has a lot of weapons on that team. There's a lot of first-round picks that are first-round picks that are high first-round picks. They've been bad for such a long time that they have, probably the most top 10 picks. Second and third only to like Cleveland and the Jets. But as far as first-rounders, on their team that are still on their team, a lot of first-rounders that are top 10 picks. So they're talented. They have the talent that's there. Even their 2 first rounds this year, Lloyd is playing at an unbelievable level, and Walker's playing at a good level also. But they're still a little young. They still don't quite know how to put everything together. Doug has got them going in the right direction. But one thing I don't think the Eagles will do is downplay how good they are. They're going to have to game plan these guys and understand how to, take advantage of them knowing and understanding and being on their second year under Nick Sirianni. So when I look at the offensive side of the ball, if I want to say, all right, how is Shane Steichen going to attack this young and explosive and fast defense? Well, what they do up front, and I'm always going to start in the trenches, is they move guys around. They like to slant. They like to run games, ET stunts, meaning the end goes in and the tackle goes around, or TE stunts, the tackle goes and picks the tackle and the end goes around and the inside and through the A gaps. They try to get the offensive linemen on different levels when they're passing the ball. And, that's how they create most of their pressure. I mean, they had, 8 hits? They have 9 turnovers because they're so fast and they can penetrate. What you do against a team like that is take advantage of their aggressive nature. You run screen plays. You run plays in which you get them up the field. Trap plays. You run plays that really allow you to take advantage of their upward motion, their upward getting up the field, and make it a hindrance instead of being a strength of them. So when you run a draw play, get them up the field running. Now you're up on the second level. Guards and tackles up on the second level, blocking the linebackers while they have to retrace and try to go back and get the ball. That's what you do. On run plays, I think the Eagles need to establish the run. They need to run a lot of zone plays, and they love running the zone play. But when you run zone plays, you don't block men. You block a space. So if they're going right, they're going zone right. We just call it 17 lead or something going to the left or to the right. You make sure that you're blocking a space. So when you're scooping a space. So whoever comes in your space, you block them. And when you do that, if you happen to cut one of those guys off or keep one of those guys from slant or twisting into the gap they're supposed to be in, it makes a cavernous hole because you stop somebody from getting to their responsibility. So it opens it up. So, I mean, it can be a disadvantage and advantage. This is a big offensive line the Eagles have with the exception of Kelsey. They can move those smaller guys around, but they got to take advantage of their aggressive nature.
I was going to say, the way you describe it, that Jacksonville's not only aggressive, they might be over-aggressive and like to play some games up front, which could potentially leave some open holes. The guy who might be able to have a big running day, it sounds to me like, is the quarterback. And Jalen Hurts has not had to run the ball much the last 2 weeks. We know week 1 in Detroit, they needed him making the plays that he made with his legs to help him put 38 points up, which they needed because the Lions scored 35. Last couple of weeks, not near as much. He made a couple, but they were just because he got flushed out of the pocket and he turned the ball upfield. There weren't that many designated runs. Jalen Hurts' running ability this week against the Jaguars, a big part of the Eagle offense, you think?
Well, you heard Shane Steichen earlier in the week. That's exactly what he said. He said, well, we're not putting – and I love how you look at it. We don't just go into a game and say, all right, we're going to do this. We're not going to bump our head against the wall if it's not working. We have so many ways in which we can beat you. If you don't want us to run the ball, we can pass it. We'll get it out to AJ. We'll get it out to Devonta. We'll get it to Dallas. We'll get it to our receivers and tight ends. If you don't want us to pass, or you want to take the extra defender out of the box and spread the ball, and you don't want to spread the ball out, then we can go in and pound it with this offensive line, and then we can go out there and say, all right, then if you want to take all that away, how are you going to take our quarterback away? So it'll be a big game for Jalen Hurts if they allow him to run these read options, which are zone plays by nature. So if you run a zone read and the offensive line is running the zone play, there's a lot of opportunity. If that end doesn't crash and the tackle loops around, then it'll be wide open. He just hands the ball off, and the running back will be bumping his head on the uprights. We just got to make sure we play discipline, and that's exactly what this team has been doing and how they've been approaching the game. They're approaching the game crossing their own T's and dotting their own I's, and that's how you become a big-time player. The year I won the Super Bowl, the fact those 2 years, it was supposed to be an all-Pennsylvania Super Bowl the year before Super Bowl 39 when the Eagles were in it. It was supposed to be Pittsburgh and the Eagles, but we lost to the eventual Patriots cheating, Spygate all started, with our game in the championship game. But, I digress. They won. They were the better team. I was mad at my team because we didn't cheat well enough. You know what I mean? We couldn't cheat as good as they could. But when I watch this offense, there's so many ways in which they can beat you. But I don't think it's one of those things, you're a jack of all, master of none. You know what I'm saying? I just think that they understand their strengths. And they know their strength is in the quarterback's ability to do whatever you need him to do to win the game. And that's exactly what Jalen does. He needed to run for 90 yards the first game against the Detroit Lions, so he did it. The second game, he needed to be more even keeled. We need to disperse the ball out. We need to make sure that we could do everything. So he scored a touchdown in that game with his legs and also threw for a touchdown. He only had probably 60 yards or something like that in the second game. Then the third game against Washington, we needed his arm. So he went out there and used his arm. He is very very adaptive on how he approaches the game. And Shane Steichen understands these traits that he has in him and is willing to nurture whatever it is. So he's not saying, all right, I don't want you to be a running quarterback. I want you to be the quarterback this team needs at that point. And Jalen can do all of them.
And he and Shane Steichen seem to be on the exact same page right now. We'll see if that carries over to week number 4. All right, Barrett, I know every time you come on and join me, you do what you do every single day here on Sports Take Show and do a great job. But I like to tap into your former player knowledge. From time to time, I either with tongue implanted in cheek or directly question Eagles with their practice routines. I'm an old school guy who believes that to get better, you need to work at it. You need to put time and effort in, and too much rest and too much protection can lead to not being 100% up to speed on a Sunday. Hadn't hurt the Eagles at all this year. I'm looking pretty stupid because the Eagles are 3-0, and I'm questioning the fact that they under practice. And I know it was a while ago when you played, but yourself, your teammates, and the like, just specific, like a week this week, like for Boston Scott, he's not going to get a chance to practice. He's got the rib stuff. No commitment yet as to whether he will or won't be in the lineup on Sunday.
Better, a great game for him too.
And yeah, Boston could be a contributor this week.
Yeah.
Better for a guy because you're more well rested. If you don't get the work in, do you feel that you've missed out on something and might not be up to speed on a Sunday? I know there are so many different variables. You can't give me a definitive answer, but I'm just looking for a general answer. Easier, harder, get less practice reps in during the week. Let's talk about specifically this juncture of the season, because that's another variable depending on where you are in the season. A month into the season, better to be well rested, or you'd rather be out there getting reps, and any kind of injury you have that keeps you out of the lineup is something that makes it tougher on Sunday.
You know, it's so hard for me to really say what they're doing is not working because it's working. I mean, they're going out there, they're still playing well. They can be physical when they need to be physical. But I'm always under the impression that in order to play football, you got to play football to get better at football. But I also come from the school of thought where I've seen guys that never practice and will go out and ball, like Marvell Smith, starting left tackle for the Steelers when I was playing there. Marvell had he had a disc in his neck that was messed up, so whenever he hit it, he'd get a bad stinger. He couldn't even move his upper body. So he never practiced during the week. He would just run and do all that stuff during the week. He'd go through the walkthroughs. He'd do everything but go on 907. He'd do a pass rushing drill every once in a while, but he never would practice for the entire season. But he'd go out on game day and ball out because he knew, number one, he had to be in shape. Number two, that the team needed him. Marvell never practiced, but, hey, he went out there and played masterfully anytime he was out there. Another player that never practiced was, a guy like, Troy always practiced, but there were other guys that didn't practice a lot. A guy like Hines Ward. Hines Ward didn't have any ACLs. So a lot of the times, his body would be beat up, so he wouldn't practice. But he still go out there when we weren't hitting and run routes and, things of that nature. But he played on Sunday. So they have a pretty good sense of who needs to sit down and who doesn't. I don't know who's making the decisions. I know it's not Howie, but I know it's not the coaching staff, and I know it might be how analytics. I don't know what it is they're doing, but they're doing a great job at it. And usually, when you talk about a team going into the season, it's not to the fourth game that you gain their identity on who they are and what they do best. But this Eagles team has shown the capacity to go out there and do a lot of things good. So I still don't know what they are as a team.
Another guy I always used to remember flowing into that category that you were describing, didn't practice, didn't defect. Steve McNair when he was in the league. Never practiced. He never every single day. Steve McNair held out of practice. He's a doubtful. Don't know if he's going to be able to go. And then go out Sunday and throw for 300 yards and run 50 yards. You just threw out any information you had on Steve McNair as to whether he practiced.
Irvin Fryer was the same way. Irv wouldn't practice at all. But he always stayed in supreme. Even now, he looks like he can still play. He's like almost 60 years old. He looks like he could still go out there and run a 4.340 like he did going to Nebraska, the first pick in the draft. But he never practiced, but he always went out there and had a great game. Michael Zordich, same way.
Really?
Yeah, Penn State Michael Zordich.
I don't remember him as a non-practicer. I
remember
Zordich. I don't remember being a guy who was better to not practice.
Yep. So, but he always was a gamer. Always a gamer. Fuller was the same way. William Fuller was.
One more question for you from the former player perspective, and then our very own Devin Kane, he's going to jump aboard with us. Playing against a former coach, either he left your organization or you left the organization that you were with, and you're coming back to play. You had a good relationship with the guy, maybe had some success with the guy, either team or individual. How much does that play in your mind leading up to the game? Or is it something you can just turn off like a faucet? Hey, it's my team now against this other team. Doesn't matter that I used to play. Doesn't matter I used to play against the coach. I'm specifically asking about the coach's question. How much does it play in the back of a player's mind leading into that type of a matchup?
It actually does play a lot into how a player works, how a player's, how a player thinks, going into a game. This is his old team, his old coach, or it might be his old team. I can remember the first time I came back and played against the Eagles. I wanted to go out there, even though I knew all those guys and, they were my friends and, what I'm saying, we talked, but, in between those lines and in between the whistles, we weren't friends. But you always wanted to play at the highest level when you're playing against people that, you played against, you played with, or you intimately, you know what I'm saying? Like, I knew the organization as a whole for the Eagles intimately because I got drafted by them. But we didn't have the same coach, so it was a different mindset. But I always wanted to ball out against them. You know what I'm saying? My former teams. I always wanted to ball out against them. Doug comes in here. Those players respect him. But please believe they're going to go out there with an attitude that, all right, you're our boy, but we want to show you, this is the better team. So they're still going to have a chip on their shoulder also. Yes, Doug will have the Rock of Gibraltar on his shoulder. And he was unceremoniously, dismissed, fired, or cut, whatever you want to call it, and he had to lead the team for something that, Nick Sirianni was able to do. He wanted to have the time to pick his team, meaning pick some players, meaning pick his coaches. And they told him no, but yet they let Nick Sirianni come in and pick his coaches and have some say-so in his players. So the organization learned from that, but it was a day late and a dollar short for Doug. He tried to tell him that, hey, Carson wasn't a good guy. He wasn't good for this organization. He wasn't good for me as a coach, and they didn't listen to him, let him go, and still ended up letting Carson go. So, Nick is kind of feeling some sort of way also. Nick is like, all right, then this is the guy that I replaced. You know what I'm saying? Everybody loves him. So I know I got to make sure that I go out there and crush him, and erase all doubt that I am the primary candidate, the best candidate for this job. There's so much, snake oil being sold to all these players and coaches and everything else. You know what I'm saying? They're mad. Everybody wants to make sure that, all right, I was the best choice. This is the best for me. And look how I ended up. Look what I just did to you. It's going to be a lot of, see what I did to you going on Sunday.
Should be fun. You did it on the NFL level. The highest level I ever did it on was Division III as a basketball player, not football player. I remember, though, in high school playing against a guy that I played for during summer leagues against my usual high school coach. I probably played harder that game than any game I played all year long.
Exactly.
Because I was out there to impress two coaches, my current coach and my former coach. I wanted to show them both. You're right, I can play a little bit. So I expect some of these ex-Doug Pederson Eagles to show up big for the current Nick Sirianni Eagles.
Absolutely.
On Sunday. All right, Barrett Brooks in for Johnny Mac. Coming up next, we will be joined by our very own, one of the co-hosts of the Eagles postgame show, live from Oceans on Sundays. This week, Sunday at 1, actually 4, because the postgame show comes on afterwards. Doing some work for WIP these days as well. Devin Caney's going to jump aboard here on Birds 365.